Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, welcome back to Mike's Diabetes World. Well, let's take a look at things. Current blood sugar is at 9.0, fully calibrated, but we don't really need to talk about that much because it's always going to be calibrated. My body's been working a little bit extra. It's been giving me much more. As you can see, my bolus rate just keeps going on. But the blue lines, and that is because I didn't bolus. So let's get here. Let's go 9.4. So we press this middle button, and that shows up to what you want to do. And you can move it by using the little up, down buttons on either side. You press it, it'll ask for bolus. You're going to press it again, because yes, we want to do bolus. Press again, and you start typing the carbs. So the amount of carbs I had was 91 carbs. Oops. So you can go back down, and you press enter, and enter again. There you go. And now the pump is giving me the excess insulin. You can see it slowly moving along. Now, I've been doing an awful lot about pumps and everything. The topic of today is what happens when everything goes wrong? What the hell are you going to do? Stay tuned. We'll discuss it. Okay, we have all these new devices. We have this, we have CGMs, we have ketone test kits. Everything is great, and they all help us. You have the Omnipod, you have the Medtronic insulin pumps, you have the T-Slim pumps. But what if they fail? What are you going to do? This is why I'm a big believer in having any new diabetic with your kid, an adult, is to at least go through a month, maybe two, of you giving yourself shots, understanding how to get into a regime and how to monitor your blood sugar and look for any unforeseen difficulties. What this does is it allows people to be able to give themselves a shot know how to adjust their insulins, because if you rely solely on your pump, there are times when things happen and it's not going to be pretty. It's important that you do what you need to do on an ongoing basis. Never just say, oh, well, I'll learn that if I need to. Know before you need it. It's important. Now, so many people believe that technology doesn't have a place in healthcare. Well, not so many, I guess, but technology is opening up the doors for diabetics to leave, to leave, to live, to leave, to live a normal life. And for years, we've been um, dealing with stuff and that we couldn't meet the ongoing things. Now we have technology. There is still feedback, and in the States, in schools, there is testing that goes on every year. You have teachers prepare for these big tests. You're not allowed to have cell phones. And there's this big thing, well, we have to treat all kids the same. Well, this is medical devices. And what happens, and I think they've worked this out now, but what happens if you take away this control from a kid? Oh, but they can't have this, they can't. I've heard stories, this is just hearsay, but I've heard stories where they would not even allow a child to do a glucometer test. Oh, because they could sneak the answers. Come on, really? What's more important, a child's education or something that they could die from? I think we did a video on common sense, and I think this is really pushing the envelope on the common sense. But we need to ensure that we have common sense with everything. Mind blowing, I know. But if your machines aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, being able to switch onto a shot based system. Now, I'm not one to push needles or push the pump, but you solely have to go one way or the other. You shouldn't have to be switching. And if you're switching more than once in a blue moon, but if you're finding you're having to switch over every week or so sometime, then there's something wrong with A, you and your training, or B, the system. And you need to work those things out before developing and continuing on. Never just assume that you're going to be okay. Part of being a responsible and sensible diabetic is know how to handle an emergency. If you've ever been a diabetic who's been in a situation where your insulin isn't available to you and you start getting that taste in your mouth, that very metallic taste, and you start being thirsty and you start looking for washrooms all around, if you don't have supplies, going and trying to A, get supplies for your pump, B, just to get insulin needles. Because nowadays, there are an awful lot of people who are out there trying to get needles to use for drugs. It's not so much now that there are a lot of safe spots for needle injections, but trying to go and sit through a pharmacy in an area you don't know. Been there, done that. When I worked with the training department, I would be sent to many smaller communities, the type that had the 7-Eleven, the store I worked for, and a hotel, farms all around, and the drugstore, and going in and trying to set up and say, I need insulin and I need needles, was difficult. They looked at you like, why? I don't know you. And when you say, oh, I'm here because I'm doing training, I was lucky. Most people knew someone who worked at the 7-Eleven or whatever and knew that I was there to help. But it can be difficult. So you need to be prepared. You need to know a pharmacy in your area where first thing in the morning you can get to. First time I ever learned this was I was living with my sister at the time, and we had moved from East Vancouver to Kitsilano. We liked Kitsilano, we liked the vibe. She found an apartment, so I moved in there. And during that move, we went to the apartment and it wasn't ready. So I went to stay with her boyfriend in North Vancouver. And we went to the drugstore to try to get syringes. They wouldn't sell them to me. They said, well, you could try emergency. Like emergency has time for me. I went in, I got a nurse I don't remember this taking long, but still a nurse came out and asked how many units I was taking, when I was taking my insulin, and then she gave it to me. But from that day on, I sort of had a game plan. I knew where there was a pharmacy for people around who knew me. If I went to a town, I would go in when I usually flew in the day before, would go into the pharmacy and say, hi, I'm so and so. I'm here training. I'm a type 1 diabetic. If I need something, these are the sorts of things I need. And that interaction helps quite a bit. I'm not saying you have to go around to every pharmacy. I swear there's information about me all over Western Canada. But it's important that you have procedures in line. You know how to take an insulin. You know how to do a glucometer test for ketones or for sugar. You know how to do all of this manually so that when your pump, God forbid, goes down, they can rush one to you, but that can take up to hours. And if you're not trained, you could end up in a hospital emergency room with DKA because being off the pump for 2 hours or more could cause you issues. So be prepared. And with that, I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. Bye now. My email address is mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com. All one line. Drop me